Okay, Fuji's best lenses for the X platform. I have used all Fuji lenses. Why am I doing an update to this video? Well, as it happens, of course, the very last lens for me to try, as I mentioned in a prior video a month or two ago, was the 16 millimeter. And it turned out that is Fuji's best lens. After trying it, Nikon nor Canon, nor even Leica for that matter, has produced a focal with such exquisite characteristics, attributes, and qualities. At that focal length, the lens is absolutely stunning. Actually, I pointed at the 56. The 16 is over here. The 16 millimeter f 1.4. Pardon me. They're both relatively the same size and form factor. So I have four prime lenses and four zooms here. Now, while this is Fuji's best lenses, there's one that I would not consider as a must-have. All of these are, but the 18 to 35 is not. The reason that I'm not including that is the same reason it was not included in the prior video, but the reason I have it is because I knew that if I were to grab one more Fuji lens, it would definitely be the 18 to 135. Well, I do have it covered in the 18 to 55, and Fuji's best zoom, the 55 to 200. I found one incredibly cheap, and it is an exquisite lens. The 18 to 35, unlike Nikon or Canon's ultra zooms, and this is equivalent of a 27 millimeter, 28 millimeter to 200 millimeter lens. The attributes and the near and far vignetting and issues that are common with ultra zooms in the Nikkor platform, as well as other cameras, is not present in the 18 to 135. But since I had it covered in the 1855 and the 55 to 200, the only reason I was going to purchase it and to not consider it necessarily a must-buy is if I found one cheap enough. And so that is the one exception to this 8-lens lineup of 4 zoom lenses and 4 prime lenses. In no particular order, favorite lens, I've always got a couple of them here, one on the XT1 and one right here, the 27mm Pancake lens. I'm sad to say that this lens, of course, while it was recently on sale, you can grab it for about $250 as new gray market off of eBay. Its current U.S. retail price is rather, well, it's rather high. So I would not recommend buying it from a USA warranty at, I think it's $450 currently. It is an exquisite, tiny little pancake lens. Absolutely love it to death. I mean, it's basically like a body cap. It's an exquisite little lens. Obviously, you do not have an aperture ring on this lens, and you don't have optical image stabilization. Nevertheless, it's absolutely exquisite. As I've said countless thousands of times, the second most important lens in most situations is a wonderful wide zoom, and the 10 to 24 is exquisite. It does have optical image stabilization, does have a by-wire aperture ring. So the Fujifilm 10 to 24 f4 continuous aperture. Second, the kit lens with the Fuji XT1, that's the 18 to 55. I actually have a couple of these now. I found another one so incredibly cheap, I'll probably be giving it away in a contest coming up soon, but the 18 to 55. Now this is actually a fast lens. It's a 2.8 to f4 at the far end at 55 millimeters. An absolutely exquisite Fuji lens. As I already mentioned, the 18 to 135, here you can actually see at 135, which is FX equivalent to basically 200 millimeters. Let me zoom in a little better. There we go. You can see what we have there. It is an excellent lens. I would not consider this an absolute must-buy like the rest of these lenses here, but it does come damn close, and that's the reason why I picked it up. I found one for $500, current to new retail price on it, off of sale, which ended Christmas, is $900. Of all of Fuji's long telephotos, the 55 to 200 was their best, and so there we go, the 55 to 200, an exquisite lens, absolutely love it. 27 millimeter, I've already mentioned. Fuji's portrait lens, the 56mm f 1.2, incredibly fast, basically an 85 equivalent. I don't know what you want to say about this lens. Not the APD version, which is really overpriced, but just the standard 56mm. Do not have optical image stabilization on this lens. We do have a by-wire aperture. This is their professional portraiture lens, roughly 85mm equivalent. I do consider it an absolute must-have. Any other Fuji X shooter would actually agree with me on that one. Now, the two newest lenses over here to the far right are Fuji's latest offerings from 2015, and this really kind of tells you where Fuji's going. Now, the old 35mm f1.4 obviously is faster than this little tiny sucker, the 35mm f2, but this is far faster, better color rendition, is better all around, and it's cheap. Even off its sale price, which it's never been on sale actually that I know of, it's only $400. It is much better than the Fuji 35mm f1.4. People, well, how could it be better? It's f2. I mean, there is a really horrible thing that goes on no matter whether you're an Nikon shooter or a Fuji shooter, that someone thinks that an f2 is not a very fast lens, and of course that's really, well, the word we're looking for is spoiled. It's rather pathetic. This lens is superior in every way, shape, and form, other than being an f2 to the 35mm f1.4. And the one of only basically 6 lenses I've used in the past 25 years that's actually knocked my socks off as far as its performance. It was the very last Fuji for me to test drive. I'm now test driven all of them, and this one was the most stunning, and obviously it is rather expensive. It's the 16mm Fuji f1.4. After using it on a borrow, I absolutely had to purchase it. It's that absolutely exquisite. So that's the rundown. I've got 4 prime lenses and 4 zoom lenses, and the only exception of an absolute must-have Fuji lens, and it does come damn close, is the 18-135, since I do have coverage in the 18-55 and the 55-200. I didn't want to really buy too much Fuji glass, and most people would think this is a lot of Fuji glass, but I mean, compared to the amount of Nikkor lenses that I've got, this really isn't that much. I mean, Fuji doesn't offer an enormous amount of lenses, so how long it took me to test drive all of the Fuji X-mount offerings for the XT1 and the XT10 and X Pro 1 and the just released X Pro 2 was not that difficult. So these are the 8 lenses I have now since used them all. Everybody does keep asking me about the 90mm. I did not find it impressive, and people keep asking me why. Is it an exquisite lens? No, not really. And the very same reason that this lens, a 56mm, i.e. an 85mm equivalent, is infinitely more useful than the head and shoulder shot full frame like Nikkor 135mm, is the very same reason why I did not buy, well, one of the very same reasons why I did not buy the 90mm. I have used it, and I cannot consider it a best buy at all. It is a very fine lens, but it is not outstanding, and the focal length on a DX crop sensor, making it the equivalent of basically like 135mm, makes it an oddball. I mean, is it useful? Yeah, I mean, I have some very expensive portraiture 135mm f2 DC Nikkors, but those lenses see a whole lot less action than the 100mm and the 85mm, so the same thing applies to the Fuji lenses as it does to any other full frame sensor lens in the 135mm focal range. And that, coupled with the fact that the 90mm had no outstanding attributes or characteristics, is the very reason why I did not buy it. Money being no object, hey, if it was great, I was going to buy it. I test drove it. It wasn't spectacular, it wasn't outstanding, and the 90mm focal length, basically 135mm equivalent, is the very reason why I didn't buy it. It's the same reason why head and shoulder 135mm lenses, while incredibly popular, they are a very, very faint shadow to the 85mm range and 90mm range in FX focal lengths, FX sensor focal lengths. So, and the 85mm range and FX focal length, and of course we have here in the Fuji the 56mm incredibly fast f1.2. So that's the lowdown on all Fuji. The best, after having tested them all, being as objective as possible and taking all criterion into consideration: rendition, chromatic aberration, saturation, micro contrast, speed. And the 35, and these two lenses that Fuji just came out with, the 35mm f2 and the 16mm f1.5, just outstanding. I mean, they absolutely top the list. And since they are Fuji's latest release, and maybe that really does say where Fuji is headed, they already had a spectacular lineup, and they added these two suckers that absolutely blew my socks off. And when it comes to lenses, it really does take a lot to blow my socks off. And it is unquestionable that people that actually own the 35mm f1.4, the predecessor to this, will tell you flat out, I don't care if it's an f2, this is a far superior lens. And it's also damn cheap, too. And it's smaller. Some people don't like the stubby, pointed form factor of the 35mm f2, but, you know, get off your high horse and deal with it. It's about the lens and the image rendered. You know, it's not about how you particularly love the aesthetic geometry of the lens. So, anyway, that is the lowdown. Let me know if you got any questions. And like I said, I was objective as possible, you know, having a wide basis of criterion, because, you know, a lens is far more than the sum of its parts. And most people say, well, how sharp is it? How sharp is it? You know, it's like, you know, how many times can you say that? Any professional photographer that knows a damn thing about lenses, you know, obviously sharpness is important, IQ and resolution, but there are countless other criteria that are almost equally as important. Saturation, microcontrast, rendition, on and on and on. Autofocus speed. There are many factors, and of course we'll be talking about that in a future video pertaining to all lenses in general. But so thank you for watching, and let me know if you got any questions. If you like this video, drop me a buck or two. But I want you to be happy, and I want to be helpful. That is my primary objective. If I can do that for you, which many of you said that I have, then I have fulfilled my mission. And I want you to save time and money. I'm not about showing you a bunch of glass and going, oh my God, look at all the lenses. You know, some people have commented that's the case, but I'm not about blowing money. I'm about saving money and not wasting money on crappy glass. I mean, a lot of you, like anybody else, you know, you have a budget, and I do too. I mean, I don't live high on the hog. I might have a whole lot of lenses, but, you know, it's 25 years of collecting glass. So I want to save you time and money and frustration on getting crummy lenses. You know, obviously one lens is not included here is the Fuji 18mm. That lens is pretty damn crummy. Another lens that is not impressive is the 23mm. That lens is not so hot. The 14mm Fuji X mount is also not included here because that lens isn't so bad, but it's pretty damn high and it's not that damn sharp. And actually the 10-24 renders slightly better at 14mm than does the 14mm prime, which is very unusual for, you know, a zoom. Is actually very, very unusual for a zoom to trump a prime, but that is the case. So anyway, let me know how I could help you, and I just want to be helpful and objective and logical, and to save you time and money. And you know, like I said, the second most important lens I have is a wide zoom, and you should have at least as many primes as you do zooms, but it depends on what sort of shooter you are. Are you a field shooter? Are you a street photographer? Or are you a portrait shooter? Or are you a combination of both? And where you toss your money towards the next Fuji lens, obviously, is determinant not upon any sort of subjective principles that I have, but A, what is your budget, and B, what sort of shooter are you? What do you plan on doing the most? Because if you toss your bunch of money into a portrait lens and you're a street shooter, you know, while you've gotten a fine lens, that's not exactly what you're aiming for. So someone says, well, what's the best next lens I should get? Well, you know, I can't tell you that because I am not you. I don't know if you're a street shooter or a portrait photographer, or if you like shooting landscapes. Boom, 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 16mm, 10-24, incredibly useful for landscape. And even street photography, the 35mm f2 and the 10-24. Incredibly useful for that. Or if you're a portrait photographer, or if you like shooting things off at distance. So anyway, I have to know those things, otherwise I'm not being helpful. I'm being subjective, and I have to be objective and helpful. So that's my whole purpose. Thank you for watching very much, and keep rocking out your Fuji. And the XT2 is going to be announced in June of this year, 2016, and the Fuji X Pro 2 was just announced. Check out the next video where I'll be talking about what the Fuji XT2 is going to be, because I do know a lot more than anything else you find out there about what it is going to have, and not speculation, but you know, genuine information. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Bye.